How are you doing today? There might be times when you don't feel like answering this question, but I'll keep asking until you truly feel okay. Hello, we are Mind Window, and welcome to our podcast series that often begins with why questions. Based on the first principle thinking method, we aim to offer you diverse perspectives on various life issues. And to truly cultivate a resilient spirit, join us in this podcast episode. Has there ever been a single sentence that shattered you? The mother pointed directly at her daughter, who was trying hard to convince her to pursue her dream major. "Shut up. You're useless. You can't do anything right, so you have no right to speak in this house." Hearing that, the girl could only cry. It was true. She was useless. She had always been like that since she was little, breaking everything she touched, even when she tried to be careful. She was clumsy, awkward, with no talent for delicate work. Her mother always called her worthless. She believed she was nothing but junk. The teacher shook his head in frustration and scolded the student scratching his head at the blackboard. "This kid acts like he's intellectually challenged. Your thinking is so far below your classmates. You won't make it to high school like this, and you'll have no future." In the classroom, laughter erupted. In a corner, there were whispers. The boy stood there alone, eyes fixed on the floor, not daring to look up. A whole lifetime stretched ahead, but he couldn't see any path forward. "Fine, consider me without this child," followed by a helpless sigh. The family's eldest son stood outside the door, secretly listening to his parents' conversation. Since they found out he was like this, since he started dressing like a girl, his father hadn't looked him in the eye. His father avoided him. His father said he was sick, and being sick meant he needed to be cured to be normal. His father wanted him to live a normal life. Sometimes the word normal, which sounds so insignificant, can shatter a person into a million pieces. That day, her heart felt heavy. Look at yourself. You're just like your mother. You say you hate her conservative nature, but you're no different. You're making me more and more stressed. My job pressure is already enough. She couldn't understand. What was true love? How could people who claim to be lovers say such bitter things? She used to think that when two people in love broke up, it had to be because of some big event, like a third party or an incurable illness. But in reality, just apathy, insecurity, disagreement, or exhaustion is enough for two people who once loved each other to become strangers. Because of a single sentence, a heart full of scars can heal, but also because of a single sentence, it can stop beating. Words are sharp as knives. Chosen correctly, they heal. Chosen wrongly, they wound. Even a careless remark, an unintentional taunt, or a casual judgment can become a tool to shatter one or many hearts. And this is also something I learned from Don Miguel Ruiz's book, The 4 Agreements. Words are like spells. Those who cast spells are like sorcerers. All humans are sorcerers, and we can either cast spells on others or break them. Unlike physical violence, verbal abuse doesn't leave external wounds or raise scars on the skin, but it smolders in the spirit. It slowly penetrates the heart. It can blossom into young trees and fruits if they are words of love, but it can also root deeply, draining away nourishment and vitality if they are careless, bitter words. The speaker may no longer remember, but every single word is deeply embedded in the listener's heart, causing the wound within them to throb painfully every time they recall it. Some people, tragically, can never heal these wounds, silently holding them within until they depart. The saddest truth is that people often utter careless words to their loved ones, those who care about them, more frequently than to strangers. Parents scold children, children are harsh with parents, friends mock each other, siblings express contempt. Humans are excellent at putting themselves in a stranger's shoes, easily forgiving and showing understanding, yet with their dearest ones, they unleash bitter words. Parents use hurtful language that kills their children's self-confidence, yet they always wish for their children's success. Friends casually body shame, then brush it off with, "Just kidding, don't mind it." That is the paradox. Verbal abuse can be difficult to identify. Abusers might hurt your self-esteem while simultaneously appearing deeply concerned about you. Perhaps the parents, teachers, friends, or partners in the earlier podcast examples didn't intentionally mean to hurt you with their words. Perhaps the mother herself endured childhood trauma but didn't realize it and was unintentionally projecting it onto her child. Perhaps the teacher was simply overwhelmed and didn't know how to motivate the student. Perhaps the father was only afraid of external gossip and criticism, while deep down he still loved his son very much. Perhaps the boyfriend was under immense work pressure and lost control of his emotions, accidentally raising his voice at the girl. There are countless reasons for these hurtful actions, but why do those who are hurt go on to hurt others? Those who utter hurtful words, whether unintentionally or intentionally, largely fail to understand the deep psychological wounds of the victim. And victims often believe they are too sensitive, too weak, or are intentionally exaggerating the issue. In some cases, victims aren't even aware they are being abused. If these hurtful actions repeat with higher frequency, escalating to physical violence, then you should arm yourself with knowledge to protect yourself and to avoid hurting others as well. According to Patricia Evans' classification, Working, 2006, verbal abuse manifests in the following form/categories. First is being made fun of or given derogatory nicknames. Abusers often claim they have a sense of humor to exploit a victim's weaknesses, calling them names that make them feel awkward or self-conscious, but disguising it as, "It's just fun, it sounds cute," or "I didn't mean anything by it." The second type is dismissing emotions, perceptions, and behaviors. Abusers frequently invalidate a victim's thoughts and ignore their feelings. They claim the victim is being overly sensitive and exaggerating the situation. The third form is blaming and accusing. Abusers will often use words to accuse someone in unreasonable or unintentional situations. Victims are subjected to irrational outbursts of anger, scolded for not doing exactly what the abuser wants, purely due to the abuser's own agitation, frustration, or anger. Next is sarcasm. Abusers constantly try to make victims feel awkward and ashamed. Although it may sound like a compliment or flattery, it's a way of provoking and ridiculing. Following that is criticism and belittling. There's nothing wrong with constructive criticism. However, those who use verbal abuse will always tend to criticize and pick out the victim's flaws to make them feel terrible and useless. They use humiliation and shame to demean and erode the victim's self-confidence. Next is isolation. They refuse to speak, intentionally ignoring the victim, even while both are communicating. Even when in the same room as the victim, they make the victim feel the terrifying silence and loneliness that tortures their soul. Finally, there's intimidation and frequent yelling. Abusers tend to yell, speak loudly, or use impolite, crude language to overwhelm the victim. So, what if you're a victim of verbal abuse? What should you do to overcome this psychological shadow? In the 4 agreements from the book I mentioned earlier, the second agreement is the answer. Don't take anything personally. Victims need to realize they are experiencing verbal abuse, and then they can form a reasonable approach to others' abusive behaviors. First, set boundaries. Tell the other person that you will not talk to them when they are insulting, yelling at, threatening, or belittling you. If they say they're just joking, strongly respond that you don't appreciate that kind of joke. If your boundaries are crossed, stop communicating and leave, even if you are at home. Remember, only return home when you feel safe. Leaving the house is a reasonable solution if another family member is angry and needs to calm down. In this case, leave for a few hours and return when you feel ready. If the abuser tends to remain angry or even escalate to physical violence, stay away. If there are children or other vulnerable individuals in the house, you should take them with you. If you are verbally abused by a stranger, the best approach is to demand that they stop their hurtful words. Your silence and endurance can empower the abuser to become more aggressive and use more extreme language. Therefore, the first thing to do is to adopt a serious demeanor and demand that the other person immediately stop their hurtful words. Faced with your attitude, the abuser might seem indifferent. However, instead of arguing, you should repeat your statement. What you're saying isn't constructive. It's only bringing negative emotions to me. We should end this conversation here and then walk away from the abuser to minimize conflict. Next, we should gradually learn to ignore negative comments. Life doesn't always go as planned. Instead of focusing on sarcastic or critical remarks, we should focus on ourselves, on our own emotions. Each emotion only lasts for about 6 seconds. If it lasts longer than 6 seconds, it might be that you are choosing to prolong that emotion, and it will become a feeling that lingers. This means that when faced with hurtful words, please pause for a moment to observe yourself. You might feel anger or pain in the first 6 seconds, but after that, try to look deeper and see how truly pitiable the people uttering those negative words are. They are sowing negative energy, and they will surely reap what they sow. Ultimately, they are only harming themselves. Your task now is to strive to study and work to assert yourself. Outsiders often don't see the effort you've put in. They only see the final results you achieve. This period will be truly challenging, but don't let yourself be hurt by trivial and undeserving things. Unless you allow it, no one has the right to hurt you. True education uses positive methods to help us grow, improve our awareness, and become more complete versions of ourselves. Regardless, you have already tried your best to avoid regret. These are also the final agreements from the 4 agreements that I believe each of us needs to embrace for our souls to find peace and happiness. To be impeccable with your word, not speaking negative words, not taking anything personally, not allowing yourself to be affected, not making assumptions, not setting unrealistic expectations that you must please everyone, and always doing your best. Just a few seconds of words have made me die 1,000 times over. No number of stars, no amount of lights can illuminate such a night. No amount of sorrow or tears of regret can revive a soul riddled with scratches and wounds. Words spoken can never be taken back. I only hope we can be a little gentler with each other, a little kinder and more careful with our words, to be compassionate towards others and to care for ourselves.